Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about the number one question I get all the time from other physics teachers, and that is pacing. Whether you're a regular physics teacher, an honors physics teacher, or an AP physics teacher, we're going to be talking about pacing today and how to do it.
Let's go, William. Let's go, William. Yeah!
Alright, so I just want to start off and say, if you are looking for a pacing guide, I have like a free one here for regular honors or AP classes. So check that out if that's something that you need. It's in the description below. Alright, so here are some tips. And before I start, I want to say, if you're a first or second year physics teacher and you are wondering about how to pace your class, what to do with your physics thing, maybe you got a pacing guide, or maybe your supervisor gave you a pacing guide that you need to follow, or maybe you need to keep on track with your coworker who's also teaching physics and you need to be on the same page, is I want you to really take it as a guide. Your priority, absolutely, in my opinion, if you're a first or second year teacher, really should be that the students are understanding the material as best as possible. And if you are going slow, you should really be okay with that, even if you're teaching an AP class. And the main reason that I say that is because physics builds. So if they're not getting it, if they're not getting the first chapter, they're not going to get the second chapter. They're not going to get the third chapter. They're not going to get the sixth chapter. So if you're not really taking that time, making sure your students understand and are understanding the material, and you're just trying to go at the same pace as your coworker or go at the rate that the pacing guide says you should be at, this is going to be a lot of trouble. And I've seen this a lot of times. I've seen these students who are really eager at the beginning of the year. They're ready to challenge themselves. They're ready to work hard. But by the second month, the third month, they're just walking in there, heads down, really tired. And they know they're not really going to understand anything. They're not really going to get anything. They are going to take their notes. They are going to do their homework as best they can. But they're going in there every day lost and just not knowing what to do. So I highly recommend, if you're a first or second year teacher, prioritizing having the students understand the material, whether that means going over lessons all over again, whether that's asking your students if they're getting it, if they need certain more time with things, and making that much more of a priority. All right, so I want to go more into pacing, and more than anything about not wasting time, and some tips and tricks to think about not wasting time and making sure you get through everything. So one of the first things that I see in a lot of classes, and as I'm roaming through the halls and everything, is kind of starting and ending late. So I see this all the time, whether sometimes teachers are just talking to the students, getting to know them for the first 5 minutes, or they're prepping their stuff, they're transitioning from class to class, and they're prepping their stuff, but they take 5 minutes to get started. And, it doesn't seem like a big deal, 5 minutes, and then, same thing at the end of the class period. They end 5 minutes early. It's like, this is a good part to end. Let me just end 5 minutes early. It's kind of a perfect segue for next time. Or it's like, we're almost done anyway. 5 minutes, take for yourself to wind down, whatever. And it doesn't seem like much. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. But, like, for example, my first teaching job, I had like a 45-minute class. What that means is, if I started 5 minutes late and ended 5 minutes early every single day, that means in those 5 days, more than one of those days out of those 5 days would have been dedicated to just starting and ending earlier on time. So it's huge. It seems like, 5 minutes, that's nothing, but it's huge. And to me, as a teacher, I make it a priority. I start right on time. Right when that bell rings, we're starting. And, sometimes I will end a little bit early, but not 5 minutes. Like maybe if there's a minute or 2 minutes, I'll end a little bit early. But we are like going. And I think that's a very important mentality to have if you want to keep on pace. Those 5 minutes make a big difference. Another big thing that I do, and this helps a lot with like the stragglers with the students, is if they're having a hard time with the class, all of my like PowerPoints and example problems that I do, I always have like a QR code that links to a YouTube video that they can kind of do at home. So if a student's ever lost, or student's ever confused, or even if they were sick that day, they can go to my YouTube channel, or they could scan the QR code on the PowerPoint and they can do that problem. So this is great because if they ever get lost, they always have this opportunity to teach themselves, to go over exactly what I went over, but at their own pace and at their own time. And students don't always do this, but to me it was always extremely important to give them all the opportunities and all the tools in order to help themselves. If they don't help themselves, that's on them, but at least I'm giving them that opportunity to do that. So I have these kind of like YouTube videos for every one of my example problems, which has been extremely helpful. I started doing that after COVID distance learning, which my students have loved. But before that, before COVID, what I had was a bunch of recommended videos. So if the students are like, I didn't understand that chapter, I didn't understand that topic, I'm like, go to our class website, this is the recommended video that you should watch, and that'll help you. So I had these lists of recommended videos for them to watch before. Another tip that I wanted to talk about is like homework. Like personally, I never go over homework in class, and I don't put that much of a big deal in homework. I give them homework, and I post all the solutions online onto my class website with the answers and everything. So to me, it's like, oh, what? Can't they just cheat? Can they just look at that? It's like, yeah, they can cheat, but this homework assignment is supposed to help you with the quizzes, the tests, the AP exam later on, and stuff like that. So if you're just cheating, well, that's just on you. The homework grade isn't such a big percentage, and to me, it's like it saves a lot of time. Homework should be helping them. It should be helping them get the material. If they don't know what the answers are, they can't check to see if they understand the materials or not. Or if they get lost and confused, there's no way for them to get unstuck or know what to do next with the solutions, then they're just going to be lost. So I have all my solutions out there, and if they just copy it, that's on them, but whatever. Also, for me, I don't give a big deal with homework. Like if students get a 95% on their quiz or test, the next homework is optional. So for me, as long as you're doing class, you don't need to do homework. And that's just my approach for it. You shouldn't be, I just give the solutions there, and it saves a lot of time. Another point that I do, and I think is really important and avoidable, is tangents. So, I mean, I remember as a student all the time, all these teachers talking about, their daughter's first date and what happened over the weekend, and talking about the Super Bowl and different things like that. And, a lot of times when I'm walking through the halls, I hear the same kind of things. And, as a student, I kind of liked it. And it was like, oh, especially if I didn't like the class, I'm like, oh, at least something like somewhat interesting or whatever. And maybe as a teacher, you're like, oh, they're so bored right now, let me tell a story. Or like, oh, let me get something to wake them up, and you want to tell a story. But these tangents, like, they take a lot of time. And to me, the problem more than anything is they're very random. They can come up at any point, any time. Students can be asking questions about them. Who knows what the length of this whole thing is going to be? Those 5 minutes, like I mentioned at the beginning, can make a huge deal. And I think when you start to think about my classroom and how it must be like, oh wow, like he must be like a really boring teacher. Goes from bell to bell, no tangents, no stories. And it's not exactly true. Like, I tell a lot of stories, but these stories are very much planned, they're very intentional, and there's a place for them. Like, I tell stories all the time, but they are based on physics. Like, they are entertaining, and they break up the class to make it more light, but they are about the chapter that we're learning about. If we're talking about acceleration, I talk about the first time my friend got his license and he started driving like crazy. It's a story, but it's related to what's going on. And when I would have these long block periods of like a 90-minute period, I would have a story right in the middle. It has nothing to do with physics, but it's very intentional. We're supposed to, we're breaking up the day a little bit, and I'm telling a little story about when I was a high school student, and then I would also invite them throughout the year to tell a story about them that sees them in a different light, and it's very intentional. It has a certain time limit, time constraint, and it's intentional. It's not random or anything like that. And yeah, there are many lecture days that just go on from one bell to the other bell, but I have days like lab days where I loosen up a lot. Or I have a project time where I loosen up a lot. I get to know the students more. I get to joke around with them more. But there's a time and a place. And I really believe in like work hard and play hard. So finding that balance has been really important. And for me, it's been really helpful. I always have like around 2 months to prep for the AP exam. And we start, early September. So, for me, it's like making things intentional and making sure I'm not wasting time has been extremely helpful. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope that helped in one way or another. Love to hear any other tips you might have, or if you disagree in any kind of way. Thanks for watching.